The administration of Donald Trump resorted to a trick and announced the end of the war against Iran without even coming close to signing a peace agreement. The day before, the White House officially informed the US Congress that American military forces had completed combat operations against Iran, and this had happened back in early April. But such an announcement is just a trick, and it absolutely does not mean that the war is over, in fact, quite the opposite. After all, at the same time, Trump rejected the new version of the peace agreement that Iran had previously proposed. And today in Tehran, they revealed what was in that proposal and why, after Trump's rejection, there is no reason to expect any deal in the near future. In addition, the Pentagon stated that the US is only tightening the blockade of Iran, and now this blockade will affect all ships that are not only connected with Iran but also paid Iran for passage through the Strait of Hormuz. In this way, they are also trying to completely cut off this source of income for Iran. My name is Alexei Pecci. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like this episode, and leave any comment under this video. Also, subscribe to my Telegram channel Pecci News. The link is in the description of this video. There, we post breaking news as it comes in. So, Donald Trump's administration outsmarted the legislative system. President Trump officially notified Congress that the hostilities initiated by the United States against Iran on February 28 have ended, although he did not rule out the possibility of further military action. But it was important to make such an announcement before or on May 1st, as this was a red-letter date in the calendar of this war. Because according to the War Powers Act, the President of the United States is required to obtain congressional approval to continue military actions that last more than 60 days. And this period officially ended on May 1st. That is, after that, Trump simply did not have the right to continue the war without legislative authorization. At first, the US Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, stated that he believed that during the ceasefire, the clock on the war with Iran was completely paused. Like the 60-day countdown. The period during which the US can conduct military operations without Congress's approval was stopped at the moment the ceasefire agreement was reached on April 8. And even if the truce is broken, then after that, according to Hegseth, the 60-day countdown should start over. And next, I'll quote him. Right now we have a ceasefire in effect. And as we understand it, this means that the 60-day countdown is either paused or completely stopped during the truce. And in the end, Donald Trump's team decided to do something even smarter. They just went ahead and announced the end of the war. Just without any reason, simply say, that's it, we're done. By announcing the end of hostilities, Trump is essentially resetting the clock, potentially making it harder for Congress to challenge his authority or limit further actions through a war powers resolution. The point is, if tomorrow Donald Trump resumes the war, it will already be a new war, and it will be necessary to count another 60 days until the moment when congressional approval is required. Then you can declare again that the war is over, start a new war, new in quotes, and so on endlessly. As a result, in the official letter to Congress, Donald Trump writes, quote, "On April 7, 2026, I ordered a 2-week ceasefire." Since then, the agreement has been extended. Since April 7, 2026, there have been no shootouts between American troops and Iran. The hostilities that began on February 28, 2026 have officially ended. And it was a dirty but still clever move, because the Democrats had already rejected Hegseth's point of view, claiming that the ongoing naval blockade of Iran still constitutes a military action. Because it involves military ships, and in fact that's basically how it is, so Trump just said, listen, we're done? Well, sorry, but basically 5 minutes later they started again. So sorry, what's happening now in the area of the Hormuz Strait is already a new war. The one that started on February 28th has long been over. Senate Republicans fully backed Trump, and on Thursday the Senate blocked the resolution. The war powers measure are aimed at forcing Trump to stop military actions against Iran or to request permission to carry them out. The bill failed with a vote of 47 to 50. At the same time, 2 Republicans, Senators Susan Collins and Rand Paul, voted with the Democrats. As a result, Trump made it clear that he is still open to future military actions and that he considers them as separate types of military operations under the War Powers Act. Next, I will provide another quote from Trump. The US Department of Defense continues to update the composition of its forces in the area of responsibility in individual countries as necessary and appropriate, to counter threats from Iran and Iranian proxy forces, as well as to protect the United States and its allies and partners. These changes are described in more detail in the classified annex to this open letter. And this is a good time to remember that yesterday Trump rejected Iran's peace proposal, and today Iran itself revealed what was in that proposal. It provided for the restoration of navigation in the Hormuz Strait and the lifting of the American blockade of Iran, leaving negotiations on the nuclear program for later. According to the proposal, the war would end with a guarantee that Israel and the US would no longer attack Iran, Tehran would open the Hormuz Strait, and the US would lift its blockade with everyone returning to Point A, where this war began. After that, negotiations will take place on limiting Iran's nuclear program in exchange for lifting sanctions. At the same time, Tehran will demand recognition of its right to enrich uranium for peaceful purposes, even if it agrees to suspend this activity. In other words, the essence remains the same. Iran insists on retaining its right to enrich uranium, which is absolutely unacceptable for the United States. But, yes, despite the statement about the end of hostilities, Trump is not lifting the blockade. On the contrary, the United States has warned shipping companies about the risk of being sanctioned for making payments to Iran for safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. This warning adds another level of pressure in the standoff between the United States and Iran over control of the Strait of Hormuz. Let me also remind you that Iran effectively closed the critically important strait after the United States and Israel started the war on February 28th. Later, Tehran began offering some ships safe passage, directing them along alternative routes closer to its own coast, and charging a fee for this service. And it is precisely this practice of collecting fees that is the subject of the US sanctions warning. The payment demands may include transfers not only in cash, but also in digital assets, informal swaps, or other payments in kind. In general, to put it simply, the US will be monitoring anyone who pays Iran in any way for the passage of ships. If it is proven that they paid, then these companies, these ship owners, will fall under American sanctions. Basically, Trump has obviously decided at this stage to apply economic pressure through a blockade, hoping to strangle the Iranian economy and force the regime in Tehran to agree to that very nuclear deal. But they made a clever move. The war, in case you missed it, is over. A new war has begun. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, I would be grateful. You can do this by making any donation using the links and details in the description of this video or by using the QR code on your screen. I would appreciate any support from you. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone. Subtitles.